Hello and welcome back to the PSD to HTML flat design build. In this lesson we're going to export some images from Photoshop, the only images that we'll be needing for this particular project, and we're going to export them into this Site02 folder. So what I've done is I've taken the files from the Site01 folder, copied them into this Site02 folder, and I've also added, if we open that up, I've added an image directory, img, and inside that images directory I've already imported the social media icons that we'll be using. I've imported the original GIF files for those icons that we'll be using for this course. The rest of the images we're going to be exporting right now. So I'm going to jump back into Photoshop to our flatdesign.psd file, and we're going to start exporting these images. So I've zoomed in to 100% so we can see this a little bit better. And up at the top, there's really nothing we need to export. The first items we need to export as images are going to be our navigation left and right arrows for our content slider, and then the portfolio pieces, and then we'll also be exporting the monitor and the video camera icons. So let's get started. There are numerous ways we can export these images. We could try to use slices, we could turn off layers and turn on only the layers we need and then crop the images. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new image in Photoshop or a new Photoshop file, and then we'll drag the elements, the graphic elements that we need into that new file. So I'm going to start by hitting Command N on a Mac or Control N on a PC to create a new file. And I just want to make sure that this Photoshop file we're creating is larger than it needs to be so that whatever graphics we drag into it will be large enough. And I want to start with our navigation arrows here, so it doesn't need to be too large. I'm just going to make it 100 by 100 pixels for now, and that should be large enough. Then we'll go back to our flat design build, and I want to select this left arrow for our content slider. So one way we can do that is we can select the Move tool, and then with the Move tool selected, we can right-click on that item, and we get a pop-up of all of the layers in context. So the white arrow that I right-clicked on is in the Shape 1 layer that's selected here. And you'll notice that it's indented underneath a layer called PREV for previous. That previous layer contains both this shape, the left facing arrow there, and the circle behind it, which is in this ellipse 2 layer. So if we click on this PREV, then if we look over in our layers panel, we can see that that PREV group is selected there. And we can expand that group out just to see that we have those 2 layers there. I'm going to collapse that group again. And then with that group selected, I'm going to use the Move tool. I'm going to make sure that Auto Select is turned off. We don't want that turned on, so make sure that that checkbox is unchecked. And then again, with that previous group selected, I'm going to click and drag that up to the tab for our untitled document. And then if we want to just drop it in the center of our file here, we can hold on to Shift and then release your mouse key or your mouse button, and that will drop it right in the center of the file. Now I want this to have a transparent background, so I'm going to drag this background layer to the trash can icon, and then we're just going to trim this layer down. So we'll go to the Image menu, click on Trim, and I want to trim based on transparent pixels. That'll trim away all of the excess transparent pixels around the edges, and I want to trim away the top, bottom, left, and right, so make sure that all 4 of those checkboxes are checked. So we'll click on OK, and we see that trims it down just fine. So then we need to save it. So I'm going to use the Photoshop keyboard shortcut, Command, Shift, Option, and S to save for web. If you're using a PC, then it would be Control, Shift, Alt, and S. And from the drop down on the presets up here at the top, I want to choose PNG 24 because PNGs handle transparency a lot better than GIFs do. So we'll choose PNG 24, make sure that transparency is checked, and then we'll click on Save. So I'm going to save this in the Project Files folder, under the Site02 folder, under the IMG folder, and we're going to call this slider-left.png. So we'll save that, and then we don't really need to pull the right arrow into this particular file. All we need to do is flip this one over and we'll get the effect that we want. So we can do that 2 ways. We can hit Command T to transform it and then just rotate it around 180 degrees like so, or Command Z to undo that. Or we can go to the Edit menu, go to Transform, and click on Flip Horizontal, and it will flip it over that way. So once we've done that, then we just save for web again, Command, Shift, Option, and S, or again on a PC, that would be Control, Shift, Alt, and S. And then again, make sure we have the right presets, PNG24 with transparency checked. We'll click on save, and then we'll save this one as slider-right.png. So that one's saved. Let's go ahead and close that file because our next file is going to need to be a little bit bigger. Because the next thing we're going to export is our portfolio pieces here, these 3 images of portfolio samples, and we need to group those 3 layers together, and we can see just a couple of groups below our current group, our portfolio group there, and we can also get to it by right-clicking here, and we can see there are 3 layers within this folder called Portfolio Pieces. Well, I'm going to click on Portfolio Pieces to select that entire group. We see that it's selected over here, and then with our Move tool, we'll drag that onto our new file. Now, we haven't created that file yet, so let's go ahead and do that. Command-N on a Mac or Control-N on a PC to create a new file. And then just to make sure it's large enough, we'll make this 600 by 600 pixels. And then we'll go back to our flat design PSD file. Again, make sure that that portfolio group is selected. And once it is, we'll use the Move tool to drag it onto the untitled document and drop it. So I'm going to drag this over. And for this particular piece, if we look at our design, that particular piece is on a white background. And white backgrounds are pretty easy to match up, so we don't have to worry about transparent edges or transparent backgrounds here. And the reason I don't want to use a transparent background here is because on an image this size, if we put transparency in the background, then it might make the image a little bit larger than we want it to be. We want to try to keep our image size pretty small here. So what I'm going to do is just trim based on this background color, trim based on this white instead of based on transparent pixels. So all I need to do is go to the image menu, go down to trim, and we're going to trim based on the top left pixel color instead of based on transparent pixels. Again, we want to trim away top, bottom, left, and right, so we'll click on OK, and that'll trim that down just fine. So then we'll again use the Save for Web shortcut, Command-Shift-Option and S, or on a PC, Control-Shift-Alt and S. And this time we're going to save it as a JPEG, a high-quality JPEG. And you'll see that we have a nice small file size of 30K there, and that works just fine. So we'll click on Save. And again, we're going to save that in the IMG folder, again under the Site02 folder. And I'm going to save this one as portfolio.jpg. Then we'll jump back into our flat design file, and we only have 2 more items to export, because remember, I've already included our social media icons in that folder. So we just need to export the video camera and the monitor. I'm going to do the video camera first because it's a little bit larger. So I'm going to right click anywhere on that video camera, and we can see that this has a few layers contained within a group called video camera, and it's that entire group that I want to move. So I'm going to click on the video camera group, and we see that that group is now selected over here in the layer panel. If you want, you can also just expand and contract all of these groups until you find the group you're looking for. But again, we're looking for this video camera group. And if you want to make sure you have the right group selected, you can click on this eye icon here to make it invisible, and then click on it again to turn it back on. And that is the group that we want. So I'm going to grab that, now that that group is selected, and drag it onto our new tab. And we'll just drop it there on the same file that we were using before, but we'll just drag this portfolio pieces group to the trash and drag the background layer to the trash. And actually, let's leave that background layer there for a second and give it a different color background. So I'm going to fill it with black, and the way I did that is with black as the foreground color. I just hit Option Delete, or if you're using a PC, Alt Backspace, and that will fill the selected layer with the foreground color. And I just did that because I want to make sure that that everything looks okay here. We can hit Command-1 to zoom into 100% or Control-1 on a PC. That looks pretty good. So now let's trim the image again by going to Image, Trim. Trim based on the top left pixel color, top, bottom, left, and right. Click on OK, and that trims it down. And the reason I chose that one first is because it's a little bit larger than the monitor icon, but I want them to be the same height. So we're going to go back to flatdesign.psd. And let's grab this monitor icon and drag it into that same file before we actually start saving things. So I'm going to right click on the monitor, and then we'll go up to the monitor group here, and then just make sure that that monitor group is selected in your layers panel. And then with the Move tool, we'll drag that up onto our new file. Holding onto Shift, release your mouse button, and that will drop it right in the center. Now we see a small problem if we turn off our video camera icon there and just leave our monitor turned on, we can see that it's cutting off a couple of pixels down here at the bottom. So I'm going to zoom in, and then with that monitor layer selected here, that monitor group selected, I'm going to hit Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC to transform that, and then we just want to resize it up a little bit, like so that we can see the entire bottom portion of that monitor there. And then once we do that, we can recenter that item. Command 1 to zoom out to 100%, and that looks pretty good. So we have our monitor there. I'm going to turn off the background layer, and I'm going to leave all of this extra spacing on the side because I want the monitor image to be the same size as the video camera image. So we'll turn off the video camera layer for now and turn off the background layer, and then we'll save for web, Command Shift Option and S, or on a PC, Control Shift Alt and S. We'll change our preset to PNG24, click on Save, and then in our IMG folder, we'll save this as monitor, if we can spell it right, there we go, monitor.png. Then we'll turn off the monitor layer and turn on the video camera layer, and then save for web again, and this time we're going to save as camera.png. So with all of our images exported, we can now move into the next video where we'll get started actually creating our website. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you then.